I welcome you to News Once Was, a journey to the past to discover the forgotten lives of those eternally trapped in ink and shackled to the dusty pages of newspaper print. "29th of May, 1812. There is, at a farmhouse near the Abbey town, Carlisle, a bird of the duck species that every year changes its outward appearance as to its sex, one year being feathered as a duck, the other as a drake." From the Carlisle Journal. June 1812. Most dreadful catastrophe. Newcastle upon Tyne, May 26. Yesterday, one of the most terrible accidents on record in the history of collieries took place at Felling near Gateshead, Durham, in the mine belonging to Brandling, Esquire. The member of this place, which was the admiration of the district for the excellence of its ventilation and arrangements, nearly the whole of the men were below, the second set having gone down before the first came up, when a double blast of hydrogen gas took place and set the mine on fire, forcing up such a volume of smoke as darkened the air to a considerable distance and scattered an immense quantity of small coal from the upper shaft. In the calamity, 93 men and boys perished, the remains of 86 of whom are still in the mine, which continues unapproachable. Meetings are to be called at Newcastle and the neighbourhood to raise subscriptions for the widows and orphans of the sufferers. June 19th, 1812. There is no saying to what extent avarice, the loudest laugh of hell, will go. An elderly person who died worth £50,000 used to make captive all the flies he caught on his brown sugar, which he dried and pulverized, and, saying they were more than half sugar, mixed them with his brown sugar, declaring they did very well for gooseberry pies and dumplings. June 26th, 1812. Liverpool. Yesterday week, 2 fine horses belonging to Mr. Lithgow were drowned in the Queen's Dock. This accident, we are told, might have been prevented had there been an oak sill bolted to the bottom of the ship, which is very steep and without any defence whatsoever. June 26th, 1812. Liverpool. There is a curious story in circulation of a human skull having been sent, carefully wrapped up, to a baker's in this town to be baked, at the suggestion of a wise woman or witch, as a recipe to cure some poor superstitious female of fits. For the benefit of those who may wish to consult this Liverpool witch, we beg to inform our readers that she lives somewhere in the neighbourhood of Marybone. The public should give us credit to this piece of information, which may possibly be charged at the stamp office with the advertisement duty. July 3rd, 1812. Some workmen, while digging lately in an old castle in the canton of Argovia, Switzerland, came by a vault, in which was deposited a coffin containing the skeleton of a knight in full armour. In one hand he held a dagger, and in the other a sword. At his feet was placed a cross and a Turkish sabre. From the inscription, it appears that he had commanded in the crusade led by Peter the Hermit. 10th of July, 1812. A very melancholy accident happened at the town moor, Newcastle, on Thursday fortnight, at the close of the last race. Just as the horses passed the winning post, the interior of the temporary stand, belonging to the White Hart Inn, which was full of gentlemen, broke down, and about 100 of them were precipitated to the apartment below. The scene was truly distressing, and we are sorry to say that about 40 persons were very seriously hurt, some of whom, it is thought, will not recover. The sufferers were all alive on the following Monday. "10th of July, 1812. Lately, a house in Littleworth Drove, Deeping Fen, had nearly been burnt down under the following circumstances. The occupier, Mr. Clark, accidentally left a pair of spectacles in the window, which were full in the sun. The reflection set fire to the window curtain, and before he got home, which was in a few minutes, they were entirely consumed, and the ceiling had just taken fire. He, however, prevented further damage. "17th of July, 1812. A physician in Saxony, of the name of Lucas, has had a pamphlet printed in which he announces that he has discovered a sure remedy for the rheumatism and the palsy. This new remedy consists of the oil of brown pit coal, which the discoverer prepares himself. "17th of July, 1812. Caution. A man calling himself an American captain has for some weeks infested Liverpool. He engaged lodgings at number 52 Old Hall Street, and, after eating and drinking at the expense of the mistress of the house for several days, and contriving to borrow money from her, decamped. He has played a similar trick at several other places. He is tall, nearly 6 feet high, and thin, has brown hair and rather pale complexion. In Old Hall Street, he said his name was Arnold. "24th of July, 1812. On Friday last, as the children at the Lancastrian school in Wisbeach were returning home, some few of them were met by a man who took one up in his arms and threw the child into the river. A person who was by at the time plunged in and rescued the innocent victim. The perpetrator, being known by several gentlemen, was lodged in the poorhouse. He is the son of the late Reverend Dr. Purkis and is insane. The person who saved the child received 2 guineas from the Humane Society established in that town." "31st of July, 1812. There is a woman now living at Poulton by the Sands, well known in this town by the appellation of Cockle Mary, who, for the last 60 years, has walked 265,200 miles, being a distance equal to 11 times the circumference of the globe. From the Lancaster Gazette. "31st of July, 1812. Singular taste in a thief. At the late Skipton Sessions, Mary Todd was sentenced to a month's imprisonment for stealing out of an apothecary's shop a blister plaster. "7th of August, 1812. Lincolnshire snakes. A short time ago, 600 snakes were destroyed at Boltham, near Lincoln. They were nestled in some old manure lying on one of the fields. The parish, according to immemorial custom, gave a halfpenny each for the old snakes and a farthing for every young one. August 7th, 1812. Advertisement copied verbatim from the window shutters of the King Head Inn, Hempnell, Norfolk. June the 28th, 1812. A stray sorrel cart horse come to James Naseby last night, 2 white legs behind white face, more of the near sid, and 'tis of the other, and a white lower gib and a swig tail. August 7th, 1812. Devil's Tree. There is a tree called the Devil's Tree which grows in America. Its fruit, in a state of maturity, is elastic, and when dried by the heat of the sun, noisily splits, and bursts forth its grain. To this sport of nature the tree owes its name, for at the moment of bursting, the effect of a small artillery is produced, the noise of which succeeds rapidly and is heard tolerably far off. If this fruit be transported before it is ripe to a dry place or exposed on a chimney piece to a gentle heat, it will have the same effect and produce the same phenomenon. August 21st, 1812. Yesterday, about 2 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Wallace, surgeon of Loughborough, was called up under a false pretense to attend a woman who was said to be in labour, and, on opening his front door, some villain discharged a pistol at his head, which fortunately missed him. He had previously received a letter threatening his life, but he had taken no notice of it. A liberal reward of 300 guineas has been offered for the discovery of the person who wrote the letter or fired the pistol. From the Nottingham Review. August 21st, 1812. Murderous duel. Lately, a duel was fought at Norfolk, Virginia, between 2 gentlemen who held their pistols to each other's breasts, fired together at the word, and both fell dead. The seconds immediately escaped, leaving no one to take care of the dead bodies. August 21st, 1812. It is not a little surprising, considering our veneration for Irish antiquities, that no notice should be taken of the skeleton recently disinterred at Leixlip. This extraordinary monument of gigantic human stature was found by 2 labourers in Leixlip churchyard on Friday, the 10th. It appeared to have belonged to a man of not less than 10 feet in height. It is believed to be the same mentioned by Keating, Phelim O'Toole, buried in Leixlip churchyard near the Salmon Leap 1,252 years ago. In the place was found a large finger ring of pure gold. There was no inscription or characters of any kind upon it, a circumstance to be lamented, as it might throw a clear light upon this interesting subject. Our correspondent saw one of the teeth, which was as large as an ordinary forefinger. From the Freedom Journal. August 21st, 1812. A strange fatality seems to have attended the family of Mr. Talbot, now performing at the Haymarket Theatre. He was deprived of a father, brother, and 3 uncles by the most horrible and violent deaths in the 4 quarters of the globe. His uncle, Major John Talbot, was smothered by Hyder Ali in the Black Hole at Calcutta. His uncle, Captain James Talbot, was wounded and supposed in that helpless state to have been burned alive in a house set on fire by the fate of war in Charlestown during the American Troubles. His other uncle was shot in a duel in England and died the miserable victim to a false notion of honour. His brother George was killed in an engagement at sea while on board his father's ship as midshipman, and the father of Mr. Talbot met with a fate perhaps still more tragical than all the others, having been wrecked on the coast of Cafaria, he being a passenger, with his servants on board the Grosvenor East Indiaman. September 18th, 1812. Turtle, Angel Inn, Dale Street, Liverpool. T. Yellowly respectfully informs his friends and the public that he has on sale a quantity of fine, lively turtle, just imported. Turtle soup every day from 10 till 5 o'clock. Turtle made up on the shortest notice in pots to carry to any part of the kingdom. 25th of September, 1812. On Friday last, a daughter of Mr. Wriggle, farmer, from Loffield, aged 10 years, was caught by a dressing machine at work, and so mangled from the hip to the heel as to render amputation of part of the foot necessary. Little hopes of her recovery are entertained. "25th September, 1812. Some little time ago, Mr. Boniface of Ford, near Arundel, lost a greyhound and made strict inquiry after him, but to no purpose, until last Friday fortnight, when he was found dead by some reapers amongst the standing corn, with a hare laying by his side, both in a state of putrefaction. The pursuant and escape contended for in this gallant chase by these fleet-footed animals, it may be fairly presumed, was so equally sustained that they ran until nature was totally exhausted and until they fell, broken-hearted, together. October 2nd, 1812. A miser. C. Miller was committed to the Nottingham House of Correction a few days ago on a charge of starving his wife and children. Before the magistrate, he pleaded that he had sincerely repented of his conduct and begged dismissal. This was promised him provided he would pay the fees of his apprehension, amounting to 4 shillings, but he could neither find money nor could anyone find it for him, and to durance he went. After remaining a few days in prison, £22 and 3 shillings were found concealed in his clothes, which was given to his family. September 9th, 1812. Last week, a person who keeps a grocer's shop in Green Street, Grosvenor Square, making some alterations in his shop, happening to take up the flooring to repair, when, to his astonishment, a bag was found which had been carefully concealed, containing between 300 and 400 guineas. He gave a supper on Thursday night on the occasion. September 9th, 1812. On Monday night, a valuable pointer dog, while pursuing a water rat, was precipitated into an uncovered well 30 fathoms deep at Hag's Castle. The owner of the dog, a gentleman of Glasgow, offered 5 guineas to anyone who would go down for his dog, but not an individual undertaking to do it, although several colliers were present. The gentleman immediately descended by means of the rope fastened to the windlass, and brought up the dog in a state of suspended animation, but by proper means it was soon restored. November 6th, 1812. The following curious phenomena were witnessed at Gessen, in the circle of the Upper Rhine. On the 18th of August, after continued sultry weather, a piece of woody ground comprising 12 English acres suddenly sank about 5 feet. On the 20th, it fell 2 feet more. On the 24th, it sunk another foot, and continued giving way almost imperceptibly. By the 4th of September, it had sunk 15 feet. This frightful chasm remained near a week and was visited by thousands. On the 12th, the surface of the land became marshy, since which water was observed to rise, and by the 19th, it had entirely filled the vacuity and presented a level sheet of water. November 6, 1812. Lately, a midshipman, in passing through Cambridge, stopped at the Pickerel Inn to take some refreshment, when he inadvertently discovered to the company he joined that he had £45 about him. On quitting the house in the evening, having to cross a bridge, he was there attacked by 6 fellows who cut off his pockets and endeavoured to throw him over into the river. He, however, clung to the battlements until one of the fellows with a stick struck his fingers so hard that he let go his hold. Being a swimmer, he made for some steps nigh at hand, which the ruffians observing ran to meet him and plunged him back into the water. He then swam to a neighbouring sluice and made his escape. 4 of the men are already in custody. November 6, 1812. Liverpool. 5th of November. Some boys purchasing gunpowder yesterday at a grocer's shop in Dale Street continued to play with a pistol until a spark from the flint communicated with the powder in the drawer. An explosion instantly took place, and considerable damage was done to the goods, and the windows were very much shattered. The young man behind the counter and one of the lads were severely injured. November 6, 1812. On Tuesday the 6th, a coal pit in Shiny Row, County of Durham, suddenly took fire by an explosion of inflammable air, in consequence of which 1 man and 6 boys were severely scorched. And upon the Saturday following, October the 10th, about 1:30, the Harrington Mill pit, distant from the above-mentioned pit about 200 or 500 yards, also took fire, most suddenly, by which 4 men and 19 boys were killed upon the spot, and many people severely wounded and burnt. 2 boys are still missing. This dreadful catastrophe was occasioned by the explosion of a fire damp. November 6, 1812. A newly discovered island in the latitude of about 54 south, named Macquarie Island, in compliment to the governor of the British possessions of Australasia, have opened an additional fruitful field to adventurers in the seal fishery, and the enterprise of these individuals who prosecuted the fishing at Macquarie Island have been abundantly rewarded. Upwards of 80,000 seals had been caught at that island in the course of a few months. November 13, 1812. A farmer in Herefordshire had £27 taken from him the week before last by a toll collector at a gate on the North Road for carrying through the toll gate a light basket on the top of a load of dung. November 13, 1812. The well-known attachment of the Newfoundland dog to the human race in cases of drowning was displayed alongside the Fantôme sloop of war in Haruz on Sunday night in a most striking manner. 11 sailors, a woman, and the waterman had reached the sloop in a shore boat, where, in consequence of one of the sailors stooping rather violently over the side of the boat to reach his hat, which had fallen into the sea, the boat upset and all in it were plunged into the water. A Newfoundland dog on the quarter-deck of the Fantôme, surveying the accident, instantly leaped among the unfortunate persons, and seizing one man by the collar of his coat, he supported him until a boat had hastened to the spot and saved all but the poor waterman, whose name is Kelly. After delivering his burthen in safety, the noble animal then made a wide circuit around the ship in search of another, but finding nothing except an oar, he took possession of it and was deservedly welcomed on board with the acclamations of the admiring crew. November 18th, 1812. Dreadful accident. A dreadful accident took place lately in Arkengartdale, which is so famous for its mines of lead ore. By some means, wind and water got vent into a long level and drove the men, boys, wagons and horses that were in it for nearly a mile. The shrieks of the men and boys were dreadful, and the roaring of the wind and water was louder than the noise of the loudest thunder. The scene may be more easily conceived than described. 3 servants were killed on the spot, some others are not expected to recover, and a great number escaped almost miraculously. From the Carlisle Journal. November 20th, 1812. A female at Darmstadt lately poisoned her own brother through a principle of humanity and piety. He was ill, and his recovery was despaired of by the physicians. The girl, seeing that her parents who doted on him were exhausting themselves by their attendance and nightly watchings, believed that it was meritorious to save them, and put the young man out of pain by administering opium to him. The mother, on discovering that he had been poisoned by his sister, died in a state of distraction. The father took to his bed, never spoke again, and survived only a few days. The daughter, convicted upon her own confession, and was broken alive upon the wheel. November 27th, 1812. A child who lately began to learn to read in the charity school at Greenford was among other words spelling C-R-E-A-M, which he could not immediately put together to say what they spelt. When the master said, "Well, sir, what does C-R-E-A-M spell?" The boy, still hesitating, the master again said, "Why, what does your mother put in her tea?" The boy answered, "Rum, sir." November 27th, 1812. A singular marriage took place lately near the Old Head, Caithness, between a woman of 100 years and a man of 70, being her third husband. It is somewhat remarkable that on the same night she was married to her first husband, her second was born. November 27th, 1812. Cruelty attempted to be justified by custom. Lately, a butcher's servant was prosecuted before the magistrates of Glasgow for driving 7 sheep through the town to the slaughterhouse, each of which he had lamed by cutting the tendon of one of the knees to prevent them running out and to lessen the trouble of driving them. The man pleaded guilty in defense that the practice, which was familiarly known by the term napping, was very common and necessary when the sheep were wild, and his master, who attended, corroborated this statement. 2 other butchers, however, deposed that the practice was by no means common and was generally discouraged by the masters, and the magistrates, after reprobating the action as an outrage on humanity and common decency, fined the offender in the sum of 1 guinea. December 4th, 1812. Extraordinary large cabbage. John Stored of Orton, Cumberland, cut a cabbage in his garden last week, which weighed 33 pounds, and he has as many others nearly as large. December 4th, 1812. The latter end of the month of August last, at an early hour in the morning, a bird was observed on a tree at a gentleman's house at Beert. A clown who lived about the house as servant mistook it for a hawk and shot it, when it proved to be a beautiful green parrot, and had round its neck a gold ring on which was engraved Captain Pakenham of His Majesty's ship Saldanha. A person in an adjoining field was listening to the bird when it was shot, and thought it was attempting to speak either the Spanish or French language. What seems extraordinary is that the bird had not been seen in any part of the country before that morning, though the vessel from which it must have escaped was lost on the 4th of December last, off Lough Swilly. The place where it was killed was about 20 miles from the wreck. Poor Poll and a dog were the only survivors from that ill-fated ship and her gallant crew. December 11th, 1812. In the town in Westphalia, justice lately punished with 25 lashes and exposure in the pillory a crime of a nature rather singular. The culprit had stolen from the body of a Jew, deposited in the tomb, the dress in which he was buried as usual with that people. He had the impudence to wear this dress in public for a few days afterwards, giving as reason, "The rascal robbed me often while he was living. Why should I not take my revenge now he is dead?" December 24th, 1812. A fine horse belonging to Mr. Jupe of Goring, Sussex, for which the owner was lately offered 100 guineas, had its neck so severely lacerated by the tusk of a boar lately that its death was the consequence of the savage attack of the ferocious animal. December 24th, 1812. Lately, a young woman in crossing the bridge of Don was met about the centre of the arch by a horse and cart. At the instant of her passing them, something startled the horse, and he sprung towards the side of the bridge on which she stood. Seeing the impossibility of escape, she leaped on the parapet, and making this exertion, however, she lost her balance and was precipitated into the river from the tremendous height of this bridge, about 50 feet. A boat was instantly put out when, wonderful to relate, she was taken up in life and is now restored to her usual health. Please feel free to like and subscribe.